Welcome to What Do You Want to Do, the show that will hopefully help you figure out what you want to do in life or reconnect you to what you love doing. Each show has a guest who is doing what they want to do, whether it's in their career or in addition to their regular job. Most importantly, we want to help you realize that no matter your age, you too can do what you want to do if you have the will to do it. Now here's your host, Leonard Caplan.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of What Do You Want to Do? My next guest has not one, but two careers that she loves. One is dancing, and that includes samba, salsa, ballroom dancing, you name it. Jenny Geska does international dancing, goes to other countries and does it. She'll go to these festivals, congresses, and she's quite well known in the world of dance, and she knows a lot about dance history, which you'll find out in both episodes that I'm going to be showing, this one and the following week. Her other career is in real estate, which she says she loves just as much. Jenny was a former student of mine in my media class at Melrose High. Back in the day, she was our news anchor and reporter. I happened to see her on Instagram doing a video about real estate, and it just blew me away. And that gave me the idea, gee, I should have Jenny on, because she's so poised and so confident in herself. And she's really come a long way. Let's watch this interview with Jenny. You're going to see how she comes across very, very happy and comfortable in her own skin. May we all be that way. Welcome to What Do You Want to Do? And here's another show. And you can tell right now it's spring or almost spring, or I'm willing it to be spring. It is March 31st as we record this, and tomorrow is April Fool's Day. No April Fool jokes with my guest tonight, Jenny Geska, dancer extraordinaire. Welcome to the show, Jenny.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is really an honor, and it's been so long. It's just really amazing to be on your show and to just catch up, really.
You know what's really funny is that you speak like where you live now. You don't speak like a New Englander anymore.
I lost my accent. Yes. Yeah. You don't thrive well around here with that accent. They will pick you out, and so
you
yeah.
Adapted really, really well. I mean, I can do that, like if I'm doing a character or something, but I can't do it without thinking. But I'm very self-conscious of it right now. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's you know what? I moved around a lot when I was younger, so I had a little bit more accent when we knew each other before, but I would say almost immediately when I moved out of Massachusetts, it was almost gone because it wasn't really sunken in. It was at the surface, it wasn't
Yeah.
down.
For the viewers and the listeners, Jenny was my student back in the day, and she anchored our news show, and she did all kinds of projects with us, and she brought her sister Jessica in, and I follow Jessica on Instagram as well. And Jenny actually has two careers that she loves. Is that a correct assessment?
It's at least two. You can bunch them. You could bunch everything into just two, I would say. Yeah.
But you love them both. That's the point.
I do. I'm a self-proclaimed multipreneur.
See, some people will have one career that they love and one just to pay the bills, but you're lucky enough you have hit two that you are passionate about. Yeah. So if you had to pick one, Jenny, which one would you pick if you had to get rid of one or keep one?
That's awful. I would say I would probably have to go with real estate, because at some point, dances can always be my hobby, but I think at some point I'm probably going to get very tired and old, and I'm not sure I could necessarily do that forever and ever, but you never know. I see people doing it. So
I have a friend, she used to have a ballet school, and this was back in the 80s, and she became a professor, and she's still dancing.
Wow.
And that, so, and she kept preparing herself to retire. And, she just kept in shape, and she still dances. If you're healthy, you can dance,
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will tell you right now, I have all of my students, they're all grown adults. I've had all the way up into 50s in my classes. I've even had mother daughters where the daughter was in her 20s and the mother was, much older. And you can. And the funny thing is, I kept trying to get away from it, not on purpose. I just kept saying to myself, it's time to get serious. You have that stereotype as a dancer, like, okay, how long are you going to dance? And it just kept coming back to me, so I just embraced it one day. I said, it's not going anywhere. It's part of my life. So,
I happened to tune in on Instagram when you were doing one of your, I think it was live real estate spiels, and I was blown away because you're so articulate. I mean, you were always articulate, but you're so professional. I could visualize what you were doing like on network television. That's how good you were.
thank you. Hey, I owe a lot of that to you. Actually, you kind of pushed me out of my comfort zone when I was younger. I'll never forget that, and I tell everybody that. And now, growing up, I'm thankful for that because, being able to get in front of people, being able to teach classes, being able to travel and get in front of people that I've never seen before in my life, and just working with people that I meet on a daily basis through real estate. It is so important to be comfortable in your own skin.
That you are, and you philosophize about that. I like your posts when you just post memes with encouraging things for other people, because I have found in my life that the more self-conscious somebody is, in this case me, you hold yourself back. It's not even other people or other obstacles. If you hold yourself back, that's the worst obstacle of all, because who's going to get you out of it? You can only get you out of it.
Absolutely. You have to do it for yourself. And I think I hit this realization when I went back to teaching dance, and I worked with children for a while. But then I wanted my focus to be adults. And I have these women that come to class, and they're shy. They're not talking to anybody, and they're in the back of the room, and they're barely moving, and they're kind of afraid to let go. And if they stick with it, I notice in time, it's almost like therapy. Over a few months, you see these women, and all of a sudden they're dressing a little nicer. Not that that's a requirement, but they're getting dressed up for class. They're investing in some shoes. They're moving to the front. They're smiling. They're letting loose, and I can't help but think that reflects in their personal life and their career. I mean, it just kind of lets them out of their shell, and their confidence goes through the roof. So it's a really amazing thing to watch. And I just noticed, oh my God, dance is like therapy, and it doesn't matter what career you're in. You're going to benefit from it. The coordination, the confidence, self exploration. Just so you can be at your peak self is really amazing.
It is amazing. And from my perspective, your evolution is just so dramatic. I mean, you were always good in front of the camera when you did the
Upcoming on
news
MeTV.
or
In
whatever
an
else you were
episode of
doing,
MeTV
but there
in
was a
Focus,
little bit
featuring
of
Bruce Leslie
shyness,
Kent
just
and
like
Alex
it
August,
was
producers
cute,
of
it
the
was sweet,
controversial high-name,
but
high-budget
for
big
you
game show. At
inside,
first on
probably
Channel
that was a
14, but
little
later
bit of
on Channel
fear,
3.
maybe,
Host Leonard
that
Caplan will
held you
ask
back a little
Zayn
bit.
and Alex about the
I
show's
was so
originality and what
shy.
they
I
would
mean,
do
that was one
after
of the most,
graduation.
I would say for young women, high school is one of the scariest, most difficult moments in our life. We're incredibly self conscious. We're worrying constantly about our clothes, about our shoes, what people are thinking of us, how we talk, who we hang out with. There's all these pressures to kind of fit in high school. So for me, doing that, stepping out of my comfort zone, I was like, oh my gosh, what did I sign up for? I don't know what I'm doing. I didn't feel confident, but I just took the leap and just went for it. And I was like, hey, what do I have to lose? I'm already self-conscious. Let's work on it. But it took me stepping away from it and getting it done to realize that.
So did doing the news help you to get toward that, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember like the first chunk of time doing it, I would go numb, and I would hear my little voice like in the back, like dee dee dee, a little bit delayed after. And I remember just thinking, oh my God, I sound crazy. I don't sound confident. But I was doing the best I could, at that age. And it was practice. It was
Yes.
practice for the real world. That's the only thing I can think when I look back on it now.
an outstanding memory, and I'm sure you remember this, was I was doing camera, nobody was around, and you were the reporter, and Elizabeth Dole came to the school.
Yes,
And you took that mic, and I followed you for a while, and you got a hold of her and you talked to her.
Thursday, September 22nd was a day that will be remembered by all for a long time. Republican presidential candidate Elizabeth Dole visited the place where in 1959 she did her student teaching, Melrose High School. It was definitely a media event, with all the major TV and radio stations on the scene. The excitement was contagious as we zeroed in on an interview.
We're chasing Elizabeth Dole down the hallway right now of the Melrose Middle School, trying to get a glimpse of her through all the press.
For a few minutes, it looked as if the News 15 crew would get lost in a media frenzy. But following Mrs. Dole from her first stop at the middle school, the site of the old high school, to our resource room in the new building, finally our moment had arrived.
What do you think your biggest challenge is going to be as a president, as a woman?
Oh, I don't even look at it as a woman. Throughout my career, my 30-year career, I was one of 24 women in a class of 550 at Harvard Law School. Then I became Secretary of Transportation, the first woman, and only 19% of the employees were female. I'm used to being in this situation.
Yeah.
And I found, when I was on the Federal Trade Commission, for example, I was one of 5 commissioners, but nobody looked at me as the woman commissioner, I mean, you just do your job, you try to do it the very best that you can, and I don't think of it at all as a matter of gender. So I don't expect that there'll be any difficulties because there have not been in 30 years of having the same first on the scene experience.
Mrs. Dole's appearance, although brief, left Melrose High School with a feeling of honor and pride. She also left us with the knowledge that a presidential hopeful would share her ideas and hopes for the future through us and our school. Getting to Mrs. Dole was a challenge, and even though we only got to ask her one question, Channel 15's moment of glory had arrived. This is Jennifer Harrison from News Channel 15.
Yep.
A shy person doesn't do that.
No, I remember we were chasing her down.
Yes.
What am I doing?
But you never said that. You never revealed that to me.
No, I just deep breath and all right, like this is it. Because if she walks away right now, I'm never gonna get this opportunity again. Potentially, when would this ever happen again? So, I danced in my younger years too. So again, they all kind of tie in together. There were moments where you had to just say, hey, I have to just do this. I'm not comfortable. I've never done this before. So I had like one of those moments and I said, and you were supporting me. And I was like, all right, here we go. And we did. We got in front of her and asked her a question.
That was amazing. Sometimes, when there's nobody else around, it has to be you.
Yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So, but by no means is that the way I picked you. I'm sure, I said that you were the person to do it,
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. That was one of those. That was definitely a highlight for me, for sure.
So, as far as I see, I didn't really do anything. You just like picked yourself up by the bootstraps and you propelled yourself into what you do now. But I'd say there's, some steps along the way that I have not witnessed because, like I said, when I saw you on camera doing the real estate thing, we'll talk about that a little bit later. It just blew me away. So I want to get into the dance. How did you start dance, and when did you take it so seriously that you wanted to make it one of your careers?
Yeah, my parents had me start dance when I was 2. I want to say I don't know if it's dance at the time. It was like they would put you in a line and you would do like leapfrog and
Mm-hmm.
and that was dance class. We were so young. We were still learning how to walk and balance and jump and just basic coordination skills, fine motor skills. But I stuck with it my whole life. I stuck with it all the way up through high school. As you know, I was also I was in cheerleading in high school. I also did the dance team and I did color guards. So all through high school, I was dancing in school and I was dancing outside of school at Beverly Richards Dance Studio, who was, working with our school at the time. So she made my schedule work, but it was crazy. So, outside of that, I went to, I was at quite a few colleges because I was one of those I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do.
That's hard.
I wanted that exploration time, but I did what the stereotypical thing is to do, and just like, no, you just pick a major and you go to college. That's what you do. And this might be a controversial thing, but looking back now, I wish I took that time to do a little bit more exploration of where my passion was. Because I jumped around, I kept changing majors. I mean, in college was like a 10-year process for me, because I would take a break and then I would go back and then I would switch college and then I'd have to repeat, so I should have just took time, but I jumped right into college at UMass Boston. And I went for an exercise physiology major, but I was taking a lot of dance classes. I was a dance minor there, and I got like an externship with Boston Ballet, which was very difficult. Oh my God. So I got to dance all through college. And then I would say, I think the turning point for me was one summer, the Six Flags had come to recruit dancers at UMass Boston. And they were like, oh, if you're looking for something to do in the summer, we need dancers. We can hire you. There's housing available. We have a per diem. And I was like, that sounds fun. So I auditioned and I got in as a Looney Tune character.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Explain that.
I was Daffy Duck.
So you were in a costume dancing.
They were like, we love you. We want to hire you. And then they were like, for the Looney Tune show. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. What's that all about? And they were like, yeah, as like Daffy Duck.
Oh my goodness, that's
So
funny.
yes. So I was going to be in a dance show in as Daffy Duck. And I was like, you know what? It pays well. I'm going to get to go live at Six Flags for the summer. Why the heck not? So I went and did that. That ended up leading to so much more than Daffy Duck.
Back up for 1 second now.
Yeah.
You were inside a Daffy Duck suit with the mask and everything. Wasn't that hot as anything?
Yeah, it was awful. I give so much props to those characters at Disney, Universal, anywhere else, because holy moly, in the summer, and I was in, Massachusetts, I was in Agawam. I can only imagine
Yeah.
like what it feels like. So
Oh, wow.
not recommended. They tried to put me in like, I think Tweety Bird one day or something, and that like did not go well, because I had like, I think I had a small anxiety attack and like claustrophobia kicked in.
Oh, gee. That reminds me. I was Santa Claus one time for Warner Cable for 8 hours on live TV with the big beard and stuffing. And I can't, that's my only experience that could come near what you did with Daffy there. Wow.
It's something. Yeah, it was an experience. But Daffy led to a lot of things. Daffy led to me doing multiple dance shows. And then I ended up being with Six Flags for about 7 years.
I didn't know that. Wow.
Yep. And they were, I went to multiple parks. I was performing multiple shows. I was a swing is what they would call it. So I would train in the stunt shows, the magic shows, all the dance shows, and I would just do all the shows. I was choreographing for them. I had been with them for so long that at that point, there was just a very different relationship. I became part of the family. I was part of the Six Flags entertainment family for many, many years. And they would say, where do you want to go next? Which park do you want to work in? So New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Chicago, yeah.
I didn't think there were that many Six Flags.
There's a lot of Six Flags.
All I know is New Jersey.
Oh, there's so many.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got a lot of performance experience. Some of the shows I loved, some of them like playing Catwoman in New Jersey was awful. That was a really hard show. And I was like, I just wanted to dance. How did this happen? But it was, again, one of those moments where I was like, who else gets to be Catwoman? Let's go for it and try not to get hurt. So that was that. And I think that was the moment. And I did a couple magic tours outside of Six Flags where, we would go on tour with the magician and go all over the US and Canada. And it was a lot of fun. But then I got to the point where I was like, I need to settle down. This is so much, how can you get sucked up in this fun life of just traveling and performing and constantly, it felt very glamorous, especially for a young, I was only 19, 20. And I was like, I need to like settle down. I need to calm down. This is so much. So quite a few like mundane years of my life went by where I was like, I kind of in my brain, I was like, I got my fix from dance. Maybe it's time to go back to college and just kind of like get back into it, get back to life. That's what I kept telling myself. I have to get back to life. So I did, went back to college and got my environmental science degree. And I think at the time I was living, I want to say in New York. I had just moved down to North Carolina with my sister. And that's a whole nother story. Yeah, she military transfer. So that's what brought us all to North Carolina.
I see.
Yep. And I finished my degree here. And it was shortly after, or no, it was right before I finished my degree that I got kind of sucked in back into dance world. And I started teaching ballroom. I got recruited I interviewed, I saw looking for full-time dance instructors at Arthur Murray.
Wow.
And I was like, oh, so tempting, so I went and I interviewed. She hired me on the spot. And the building was literally being built. So I was like, wow, this is exciting. And it was a very different, it was a full-time position. There was benefits, it paid well. And I was like, all right, maybe, while I'm pursuing environmental science, I'm like, maybe I'm back to dance. I don't know.
So now where does the environmental science come in? Did you ever use that degree?
Never used it. Nope.
Really?
I finished that degree. I think I had one semester left after my daughter was born. And I was like, this is crazy. There's no way I can make a career transition right now. I just never used it, which is funny though, because I do use it now in a way. But at the time,
can you explain that?
Yeah, it helps in real estate, especially around here. We deal with a lot of land and development. So I do feel a lot more confident speaking to certain regulations. There's a lot of terminology with soil, and I would have, at that time, real estate wasn't even a thought. But I just wanted, when my daughter was born, she was my priority. So I took quite a bit of time off and just spent a lot of time with her to make sure that everything was good. I didn't have it in me to like leave her. I know some moms are really good about that. I just couldn't do it. So that was my priority at that time.
Well, you haven't lost a step, that's for sure.
No. So I took quite a bit of time off, and then I just started kind of going back out, social dancing for fun. I had left ballroom, and this is where it gets really interesting. For me, ballroom always felt a little, I'm going to try to say this as, in a non-offensive way. It felt like it was missing a little flavor. It felt like it was very vanilla. I was like, tell me about the history of this dance. Why do we do it like this? What is it called this for? And I don't feel like ballroom could deliver these answers for me. There was no history. And I was like, yeah, but salsa, I know salsa has history. I know cha-cha has history. Why is it so different? And I remember I had tried to take some of my students out to a salsa club here, and it was a mess. They were not dancing the way that true, street style salsa dancers were dancing. There was they could not lead, they could not follow. And I had this moment, I was like, something's weird. Like, something was just weird. And now ballroom is beautiful. I love it. I enjoy watching it. But at that moment I said, ballroom is not, when they say salsa, samba, it's not that. It's really not that. It's a ballroom version of that. And there is a whole history behind it. And I could talk about that for days. But they standardized it for competition. So it's not a true representation of these rooted street style dances that you might see if you actually go to the countries where they were developed, And I knew that, I just felt it. I was like, something feels off.
This is going to surprise you now. I was involved with a show called Fernando's Hideaway. El Show de Fernandito was a bilingual, he called it your bilingual multicultural entertainment television show. That's what, there's an actual Fernando who I worked with. And through that show, I was exposed to samba, salsa, bachata, all of that stuff. And I know, some of the best dances in the world because of the Salsa Congress. They used to call it the Salsa Congress, and they changed the name for some reason.
It's still called Salsa Congress and festivals. Yep.
My friend Xanabelle, who was on this show a few shows ago, was going to samba school, and I went with her. Believe it or not. That's a whole other story.
In Brazil?
What's that?
In Brazil?
No. They had one here in Cambridge, a samba class.
There's a good chance I know the woman.
You probably, I don't remember who it was. This goes back like in 2006, 2007 maybe. And there was a special costume, which I've seen you guys wear. So I know you're heavily into that. Explain the difference between samba with its special costumes and salsa, which is a different culture.
Yes. Oh boy, this is a heavy topic. So I'm going to give you what I've learned about it. And now I've been to Brazil to actually go to the Brazilian samba schools. I spent almost 2 months there in 2020, just learning, and I'm bringing a maestra or a master of samba here in just a couple months, which maybe we should talk about that. But
yeah.
So long of the short, this is a very expedited version of the story, but there was a lot of slave trading happening. And the West African slave trade, basically, they brought in a whole bunch of, there were slaves. And there was a lot of fight for power, right? They wanted to get their life back. They wanted to thrive. They didn't want to be slaves forever. And there were many, many years of slavery, but some of them did escape, and eventually they were freed of that. But because they had been enslaved for so long, they created different habits. So I always tell people, true street style salsa and samba, and this is why I find it really, really important to study the history of it if you're teaching it. Those are Afro dances. So their original root was from Africa. A lot of these dances kind of started with those particular people, although they were brought to another continent. That's really where it started. So in part of that West African slave trade, some of them were brought to Brazil, and some of them were brought to other areas of South America. Cuba, Havana, they were kind of brought all over, and they had been taken from their families. They had been taken, unwillingly. They had really not a lot left. And dance in many ways, shape, or form was the only thing that they did have left. They had their culture, they had their religions, and they had, their beliefs, and they had each other. So samba, for example, was their way of kind of still embracing their culture. There was samba, there was capoeira. It was kind of a way of helping them still practice their religion undercover, because a lot of the Catholic people were trying to take that away from them. They were trying to make sure everybody, was following a Catholic religion. But, you can't take somebody out of Africa and be like, you're going to come here and now you're going to worship our God. Fast forward, these things have kind of blended, but this is way back when, right? So samba really started as a dance, a way of worshiping, a way of almost protesting in a way that was not being caught on to. And the footwork started very small. If you've ever seen it, it's very small, very fast footwork. And that really started as, a very small samba that they would often do in chains. It's a very powerful story. It's a very sad story. But now it is really their pride and joy, because they brought it here. Where the fancy costumes came in was when the European influence kind of hit Brazil. And they kind of enjoyed the fact that these comunidades, the communities in Brazil, were having these parties, these samba parties. So they almost wanted to steal it. They wanted to take carnival and be like, no, this is ours. And again, this is many, many years ago. So fast forward, they brought in the glitz and the glamour, per se. Eventually everyone is having carnival together, because we're trying to do better in the world today. But it was never a glitzy or glamorous event, Brazilian samba, Brazilian carnival. It was really a very powerful, meaningful movement that was happening in the communities. And, when European people came in, they were like, this is great. This is fun. We're going to make it so glamorous and glitzy. And now it's kind of a medley between the two. You see a lot of the glitzy, glamorous costumes, but you also see some very raw things during Carnival. You see a lot of representation of slavery. They never want to forget where it really came from. And I think everybody's on the same page now.
So some of the steps are derived from representing slavery.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow,
They
I
used
didn't
to
realize that.
If there's the original step is like a samba, samba de roda, where they used to do these little samba steps in a circle, and they would just kind of be shuffling their feet. Now it's a very big, powerful movement, but the basic step has not changed. So, they would get in small circles, they would sing, they would have drums, and they would be kind of, embracing their culture and their religion as best as they could. So that's kind of where it stemmed from.
And that was part one of my interview with Jenny Geska. Jenny has a lot to say, and she's well informed in saying it. The environmental science route that she took in part one that I never knew about, she went to college for that, has really come in handy for her in all kinds of situations. So if you go into majoring in something and don't end up doing it as a career, that is not a waste of time, folks. You'll use that stuff. If you know it, you'll use it. You'll come across as a real expert, because you will be, and it'll be totally out of left field, and people are going to really be blown away by what you're talking about. So that was part one of my interview with Jenny Geska. Come back and see the rest of her interview, where we talk about real estate, how she got into it, and how she met her husband. So until then, for part two, what do you want to do?